So the program that we have done today, let's get the top camera. I'll show you the shots we're going to do. We're going to do the 80s espresso, and these are organized with different flavor profiles. So kind of fruity to less fruity. So 80s espresso, we're going to pull two ways with 18 grams and 12 grams and different baskets. Londinium is a very traditional and excellent espresso machine, a lever espresso machine, and this is the emulation of it. Cremina is another lever machine, and we're going to make a shot with that. The best overall, which is a pressure profile from Scott Rayo's book, Everything. It's the espresso book. I'm forgetting the title of it. And then the E61 profile, which seems to be the simplest. A lot of people go to it, but when we go to the E61 profile, I'm going to explain how to change it too. So with the E61 profile, you can do many of the profiles here and everything in between by working with the sliders. All right, to keep things sort of fair here, we're going to be making all the shots with 18-gram decent espresso baskets, 18-gram doses. We're going to vary the grind slightly. We're going to be using the niche, and I'm going to talk about the grind. The three profiles here, Londinium, Cremina, and Best Overall, all have the same grind, and this is a fine grind. The 80s espresso is a little bit coarser, and the E61 is the most coarse of them all. Okay, so Mark, go ahead and let's go do the 80s espresso. Now, while he's doing that, I will just say a word about dark roasts in general. Freshness. I'm going to say it again, freshness. Feel like a real estate agent. Location, location, location. Freshness, freshness, freshness. The thing about dark roasted beans is that the more you roast the coffee, the more the oil is going to degrade from the higher temperature. Now, that's okay if the beans are quite fresh. And I spend quite a lot of time in France, and they have the darkest roast beans, but it can be okay coffee because they're getting a daily delivery of beans. Now, it's the same thing if you go to Italy and you try coffee in various places, you will find that the petrol stations tend to have the best espresso. And the reason is it's the freshest. They're banging out coffee, and every day they've got fresh beans coming in. The beans we're using are called Tuberga. That's the family name from the founder of Eurocaf in Turin, Italy. We flew them in. Now, normally they won't even sell them to consumers because freshness. They want people to use them within 2 or 3 weeks maximum. Now, these are about a month old. However, as soon as they arrived, we sealed them and froze them at -30 Celsius. We've taken them out, so they're still quite fresh, and there's a lot of crema coming out. So here we have our first shots. This is 80s espresso. The buttons on the top here are going to be the 5 profiles we're doing from left to right. And what's interesting about 80s espresso is it is a lever profile, but at low temperature. Now, Paul, who many of you have asked, Paul has moved on and is starting a cafe himself. So we're no longer seeing Paul, but we are enjoying the profile that he created. Some time ago, I asked him to focus on what could we do interestingly with the control we have on the decent and dark roasted beans. And what he came up with was this, the 80s espresso. Now, the reason it's called 80s espresso is because it starts here at 80 Celsius, and then it comes down in temperature, coming down towards 70, but it's really just a descending temperature profile. That is at least 8 Celsius cooler than a normal espresso, but a lot of traditional machines are around 95, 96 Celsius. So looking at maybe 15 Celsius less. Now you can see it's quite thick, right? You've made a nice traditional espresso. I'm going to put it here. And then profile-wise, it doesn't really have a pre-infusion. It just does maximum water flow. The puck compresses, and then it flows out. And this is 18 gram in, 36 grams out, so a traditional 2-to-1 ratio. You can pull this shorter. Now, the reason Paul made this profile the way he is that he doesn't like dark roasts. He finds them full of defects. And what he was trying to do was to express the fruitiness that might be there. if two things happened. One is, could he lower the temperature so that the darker tar flavors would get extracted less? And I think he did that very successfully with this profile. The other is, if there are bitter flavors coming out or sort of dusty flavors, pull this shorter. I like doing this profile, the 80s espresso, at a 1-to-1 ratio. So I would do 18 grams in, 18 grams out. And that would be a lot more like they drink espresso in Italy, because they'll drink it 4 or 5 times a day, and they drink much smaller quantities. These doubles that we drink here in the rest of the world would give the Italians the shakes, because they would be drinking too much per day. So that's what we've got here. This is a really nicely pulled shot, about 25 seconds. We could have ground this a little finer. And flavor-wise, if we're looking to get a real smooth, slightly breadfruit and raisins are typical of what the flavors 80s espresso pulls out. So let's have a taste of this. So for me, it's a little bit dusty. And I think we were more successful earlier when we were pulling this at a slower flow rate.
Yeah.
And also, it's a little bit thin. And one of the things we're going to find with the shots we pull here is with the darker roasts, I prefer to pull them at slow flow rates. Instead of here where we were at, let's see, where we were on flow rates, we peaked at 1.9 mils per second. Okay. Here, that's what they're saying here. And I would like to bring that down to 1 to 1.2 mils per second. Really slow and thick, more mouthfeel, but also it's going to just make it a lot smoother. What do you think about that shot?
Right now, it has some dryness to it.
I agree, the dryness is there. I think that that's the faster flow. 25 seconds is a bit long. I think I would like these shots, it's really common for lever shots to run 35 to 45 seconds. And they taste best. So you've got a 12-gram version of this.
Yes.
Ready to go. So this is with our very wasted basket. So instead of a straight wall basket like this, we're curving in. And yeah, I don't know if you can see from there. And moving it around, you can sort of see that there. And I'll show that there. Okay. And the reason that we're doing this very wasted basket, go ahead and pull that, is because lever machines have narrower baskets. They will be down to 44 mils instead of 58 millimeters. But everything between 44, 48, 51, 52, those are all sizes you'll see with lever machines. And the thicker puck is going to give you less channeling and more mouthfeel, a less challenging shot, but more of an earthy, kind of heart-oriented shot. And I think that that's quite successful. So the grind has gone from 20 on the niche, and what are we now on?
16.
16? Okay, so we've gone from 20 to 16, so 4 notches finer. That's quite a lot. The other thing is, thinking about Italy, is that they don't do these big 18, 20, 22 gram doses. In fact, it's very common to do 7-gram doses in Italy. I'm not super happy with what 7 grams tastes like, but that was another challenge for Paul. Paul was responsible for all the wasted basket research. And this was the smallest dose that we thought made excellent espresso. So this is a 12-gram basket. It is straight and then it tapers. And the advantage of that is that you can use a standard 58 millimeter tamper. There are other baskets out there that do this, and those are great, but you will need a different tamper that goes into the inside basket. Most recently, also, there are kits that will adapt our machine to a smaller basket size, and those are also interesting and will give you more of a lever experience. So go ahead. So one of the things about the Decent is that while it can copy things like temperature, pressure, flow, it can't mechanically suddenly make the puck thicker unless you actually change the basket. So if you were to compare, for example, a lever machine that had a very narrow basket to a Decent, they're not going to taste the same no matter what you do, unless you switch the basket diameter. So can we show the shot pulling here on the side camera? You can see, so this is called a mouse tail. The mouse tail is a continuous stream of espresso just barely holding its integrity. And you can't quite see it in the camera, but the very bottom was falling apart into droplets. So let's go back to the front and show the shot here. And one thing you'll note that's different here is not only do we have a bit thicker crema, but we've got what are called tiger striping, which is a difference in colors here on the crema. And those are fines that migrate in. That's considered a desirable trait. It's fine.
Here, I got it. Yeah.
All right, that is just worlds better. Go ahead and taste it. Even though we went to a much lower dose from 18 to 12 grams, it's just way smoother. This is going to be the least tar and burnt extraction method for dark roasted beans. So dark roasted beans are always going to have burnt flavors. That's what makes them dark. If they don't have any burnt flavors, but they're chocolatey, then they're in the medium world. Okay? That's how I would separate. Quickly, just in terms of light, medium, dark, light is going to have no chocolate flavors. Medium is the whole chocolate world, but no burnt flavors. And in dark, you're still with some chocolate flavors, probably more what's called baker's chocolate, which is quite intensely strong and bitter. But always what I call forest fire, which is there's some burn to it. And depending on your tolerance, how much you like those flavors, you're going to maximize them or minimize them. So 80s espresso with the lower temperature is going to minimize them. And then the slower flow rate, and see what we did here? We started at a flow rate here, 2.4 going up. So we end up at a 1 milliliter per second. And back here, we're at around half a milliliter per second. So this is a nice slow shot, 37 seconds. Even though it was a small dose, really successful shot. And I think you can also see from the top camera, really minimal spray. A little bit more spray here on the 18 gram one, so really minimal channeling, which that greater puck depth is partially responsible for. Possibly also your great puck prep. Any other comments on the flavor?
It tastes way more smoother than the first one. The dryness is way more controlled.
Yeah, I agree. The dustiness isn't there. I'm not really getting staleness, which is great. That is something that comes in really quickly with dark roast flavors. I'd say that baker's chocolate, like if you were to bite into some unsweetened chocolate, you would probably have something that's close to this in flavor.
I agree. Yes.
It's not screamingly fruity, and it's something to keep in mind if you're buying dark roasted beans is they don't taste the same now that they did 10 years ago. And that's because beans have gotten more expensive. And generally dark roasted is what's selling in mass quantity, and the buyers are very price sensitive. So if you can find a quality dark roasted supplier and the price has gone up, it may be worth it. Because I feel like 10 years ago, this had red wine flavors, and I'm not really getting them now. And that's probably because the price hasn't changed, and that's how it is. I think you've had some experience as well in the coffee industry of that trend.
Yeah.
Price being so important.
Especially in the past couple of years, the price is twice or even triple.
But the buyers don't want to hear it.
Yes.
And so it means lowering the quality. So let us go to Londinium next. Now, Londinium is a beautiful lever machine, and this is a copy of what it does. What's going to be different is Londinium is going to do a fast fill, just like this did, but there's going to be a pause under pressure. And if I were to imitate it with a lever, it's lift up, so water comes in, and then slam down the lever, and then hold with some pressure, about 3 bar of pressure, until you see some dripping come out. Depending on how much dripping you want as a barista with the Londinium machine, you would then let it go to max pressure, and then degrade down again. Yep. Yeah, that's too complicated to figure out.
Okay.
There are 2 versions of Londinium, LRV2 and LRV3. The main difference between them is that they deal with the shot going badly in different ways. So the Londinium reversion 2, if on this last bit it's going too fast, you can go ahead and crank it out. If it's going too fast at the end on revision 2, it will switch from being pressure-based to flow-based, and it will lower the flow down to 1.7 milliliters per second is my memory. That will cause a kind of pressure crash, often because the flow is going higher to keep the pressure up, but it will really tame the acidity that was coming in. So one of the big problems with flat 9-bar espresso machines is that toward the end of the shot, the flow rate goes way up, and they tend to get quite acidic. The Londinium avoids that by having a decreasing pressure, and Londinium version 2 says if the puck is eroding too much, stop having pressure as a goal, go to flow. Londinium version 3 takes a different approach. It just decreases the pressure like that as a lever shot and doesn't worry about it too much. I talked to Damien about why do we still have 2 and 3, and he said because some people actually still prefer one or the other. And it's true. I've been trying Londinium for a few weeks now with the same bean, and I would say 2 and 3 have different flavors when things are going a bit too fast, and they salvage it in different ways. For me, when I have Londinium dialed in perfectly, I prefer version 3 because it's just a lever shot. It's a declining pressure shot. You've got 30 seconds. All right, so here's our dripping. The pallets are moving above us. Okay, great. Shot looks good. So we've risen to 9 bar, and now the pressure is declining. Flow's a little bit fast. Great. And here we are with 36. Okay, and so some of the attributes that we liked in 80s espresso are here. We have a nice thick shot. We have some tiger striping. We've got quite thick. Look at that. The crema is really thick, and it's much thicker than the 80s espresso. And I think that that's a couple things. One is that is the longer hold under pressure, and going up to a high pressure. Also, it's higher temperature. So this is going to taste a lot more like a traditional Italian espresso. However, it's going to extract a lot more. And I would say if you've got quality dark roasted beans that maybe have a bit of subtlety to them, Londinium is a really good profile to choose. This soak time here is going to extract far more out of your beans. What it's also doing is it's holding pressure constant. So the reason I didn't choose adaptive here is adaptive lets the pressure drop here. And on dark roasted beans, that's not great because you sacrifice a lot of mouthfeel. Here it pressurizes, holds the puck really squished, and then rises in pressure again. And you can see what he's done, he being Damien who authored this, is there's this declining pressure profile which kept flow constant. So this is a great profile for getting a lot of flavor, a lot of body. What are your thoughts on that cup, Mark?
It tastes, I can taste way more dark chocolate flavor coming out compared to the 80s, and smoother somehow. At least in my mouth, it tastes.
I think there's just way more extracted.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a much more full-bodied cup. I think so. 80s espresso is intentionally under-extracted.
Right.
And that's because the temperature is lower, so it extracts less. If you don't have off flavors, or you don't mind, you don't think they taste like off flavors, then Londinium is going to extract probably the most of all these profiles that we've got here. So this is a big, bold cup of coffee. Anything to add to that? Okay. Next, we're going to do the Cremina. Now, Cremina is another lever machine, and but the big difference is Londinium. You can see the pressure really didn't come down much. It went from 9 down to 8 bar. We stayed up very high pressure, and the reason we did that is because our flow was held pretty constant. Same grind. Now, we're on 20, is that right?
Yes.
20 on the niche, so 20 on Londinium, Cremina, and best overall. Go ahead and do it. The difference is the Cremina is going to be a longer shot. It's probably going to end up being 45 seconds or so. The flow rate is going to drop here. And the theory behind this is that in a dark roasted bean, most of the flavor comes out quite quickly. And you want the thickness to stay. And if you keep the pressure high, then as the puck erodes, you're getting more and more watery coffee. And so with a proper lever machine, you're really dropping the pressure as the shot continues to try and keep the thickness of the coffee coming out nice and high. And so really syrupy, thick espresso. So Cremina is going to be most effective at doing that. If you're going after mouthfeel, I would say this is a really good choice. We didn't do it because I don't want to have too many shots here, but Cremina would be another one that I would make with a wasted basket, trying to get a thicker puck, because I am doing a really long shot. Go ahead. I'm doing a long shot, thick puck, thick espresso, really traditional. All right, so we have a fast fill and a little bit of dwelling here, a little bit of soaking, and now up we go on the pressure. Okay, and you can see our flow rate is quite slow. And if you go to the side camera showing the shot, we have a really thick shot. And you can hear the espresso machine tapping away. You can hear the flow rate slowing down. Okay, 44-second shot, so this is really nicely dialed in. Thank you, Mark. And the king of chocolate. Just a crazy amount of thickness to this. Turn it, shake that around like that. Give you an idea, I can't even get the crema to separate, right? I'm putting a spoon in there. So much thickness. And what did we do in the end? We are 36 grams. So same out, same in as the others, but that was a lot. All right, and let's give this a taste. What are your thoughts on that?
The aftertaste tastes longer than the previous Londonium, and also some of it feels more intense to me. Yeah.
We are going up in temperature. So Londinium was, I believe, at 88 Celsius through most of it, and now we are at 92 on this shot. So that's a 4-degree increase, and I'm tasting that. I'm tasting this coffee getting more and more like that Italian petrol station. At the higher temperature. For me, this is a harsher espresso. It's not as refined, but I'm extracting more and more out of it. So if you're looking for an espresso that really wakes you up at the end of a meal, like you really want to just down it and kerplow, this would be a good one. You also could pull this with 12 grams, still 45 seconds out, and get something really long. You could also pull it as a ristretto. So because that higher temperature is going to give you what the Southern European tradition would consider to be a real espresso, right? There's nothing fruity about that.
No.
We are in baker's chocolate and some burn, some mouthfeel. The goal here with this is to show you the variations of things you can pull, not to say that one style is different and better. And now we're going to go to best overall. So the best overall profile, that came from Scott Rayo's book, and he didn't have access to a pressure profiling machine at the time that he wrote the book. It was a friend of his who did. I think it was Estrada, and he trusted that friend, and it was a 9-bar to 6-bar profile. And when I did the initial app for this. That's why we call it the best overall, because it's in the appendix of Scott Rayo's book, the best overall pressure profile. Now, this isn't worlds different. You can see here we went to about 7.8 bar and went down. But the best overall is going to be a 3-step profile. It's going to fast fill. It's not going to have it's not going to have any soaking time like the Londinium does, no dripping time. It's going to be more traditional. Rise up in pressure quickly, and then dropping pressure, hopefully to maintain a slow flow rate that is constant. That's what we're trying to do with this profile. And we are still at the same grind size as Londinium, Cremina, and best overall. So best overall really is a lever shot, but it's not going to ever get down to low pressures. It's going to stay pretty high. Once we're done with that, we're going to show you the E61 profile. And we could, in fact, just change best overall into E61, but I want to show you in the decent espresso machine, you've got two kinds of profiles. You have these simple profiles, which are flow and pressure, and they're 3-step shots. Pre-infusion, rise in pressure, decline in pressure. That's how all those shots work. And then there's advanced profiles that can do any number of things. Now, 80s, Londinium, Cremina, those are advanced profiles. Because they're advanced, they're a bit harder to edit. Best overall, E61, are those 3-step simple profiles, and you can edit them yourself. So let's show that. Just watch your arm. Let's throw it aside. So here we go again with a nice smooth shot. I mean, it looks really pretty. And we should stop at 36. Good. I want to show you the curves and explain. So here we go again. We got a very fast fill. Now, fast fill is important when you're doing dark roast because you want to get minimal channeling and you want mouthfeel. If you do a slow fill, especially with dark roast, you're more likely to have channeling. You're going to extract a bit more unevenly, and it's going to have less body. So as fast as you can go. Lever machines are even faster. So it took us about 5-6 seconds. 5 seconds is what it says here on the screen. To saturate the puck, the flow dropped, the pressure went screaming up to 8.6 bar. And then it slowly was declining. So this is a traditional pressure-controlled shot. And what you can see here is that the declining pressure, as the puck was eroding, it started to speed up, but then this decline pressure kicked in and it kept the flow rate pretty constant. And that's believed to be a good thing, to have constant flow rate. The adaptive profile enforces it. So what it does is it goes to this point and then it switches to flow profiling and a pressure comes out. But this sort of profile was nicely dialed in for this style of bean. And so it doesn't really matter if you're pressure profiled or flow profiled, you end up with the same curves. All right, here we are. Let's give it a slurp. And let's see, so we've got less crema, noticeably less crema than this. Okay. So much less time under pressure than the Cremina. Flavor-wise, what do you have to say?
Flavor-wise, I would say, it started to taste a bit bitter to me compared to the previous one, Cremina. Cremina is still tastes the most smooth so far. Best overall profile, this still shows up that bitter dark chocolate side quite much. Yes.
We've come down in temperature to 88 from 92. I feel like the temperature might be a big factor here. For me, this is less extracted than Londinium was the most, and Cremina quite as well. Cremina was the most, sorry, because it had the highest temperature. Londinium was, for me, the most full-bodied cup. Best overall is an easier drinker for me. I find it to be, it's pulled back a bit on the extraction. It's really pleasant. For me, if I were milking, if I were making any sort of latte, flat white, any sort of drink, I would probably go with the best overall. There's no acidity. It's just a nice smooth shot.
Yeah, It's great for a base. For
Yeah.
milk drinks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Crema is not necessarily a good thing either when you're putting milk in. You're going to have to mix it in. So I'm quite happy with that. Let's go ahead and make the E61 shot. And one of the things we're going to do with E61 is we're going to go coarser. And the reason is usually on traditional E61 machines, the shots are more like 25 seconds. And here we've been doing lever style. Now, E61 machines are no pre-infusion, hit the puck hard, and then go to 9 bar and sustain 9 bar. And a characteristic of them is they have some sourness. The reason they have sourness is that the constant 9 bar against the puck that's eroding is going to make the flow rate go up. On E61 you can't see that happening, we can see it here. And that's why you want to make your shot a bit shorter, because with the constant pressure, the flow rate going up, the longer you pull your shot, the more that flow rate's going to go up, the more likely your shot is going to be sour. So quicker, shorter being more typical of E61. We've gone to a 25 grind, is that right here?
Still 1836.
Sorry, the grind size.
25.
25. Okay, we got one bean there, a few beans. I am not a fan of the E61 profile. It's there because people think it should be, and it saddens me when people buy this machine and do the E61 profile, but there it is. I was joking yesterday that for this to actually be an E61 profile, I'd have to make this temperature start at 60 Celsius and then go to 95, because E61s are notoriously temperature unstable. And, but I didn't do that. I made an E61 that was incredibly temperature stable. There are some E61s now that are, but E61, if you don't know it, it was invented in 1961 and is largely unchanged except for some smarter heater technology called PIDs, and some companies have put insulators on top of the group head. All right, so let's show the camera on the side, and you should see the shot is flowing a lot faster. It still looks quite pretty, and then as it progresses, you can see the color changing on the shot. So it lightened up toward the end. Now that was probably too coarse, right? So we did 36 grams in 15 seconds. I don't even know if I want to taste this, because that was too much. Can we go to something intermediate grind size? Mm-hmm. and try to dial it in? So this, couple things here. So one, our flow rate was 4 mils per second, which might be appropriate for a very light roast. Not great for a dark roast. It can be too watery, and too many bad flavors are going to come out. The other thing is it's just too short a shot, 15 seconds. I wouldn't mind a 22-second shot. That would be probably as fast as I would want. 25 would be great. What grind size are you trying here?
So I was on 25 before, and now I'm on 22.
Okay. So that's going to be the same grind size that you had for 80s.
Yes.
Okay. And that certainly makes sense. The other thing to note with E61 is I've brought the temperature back up to 92. Again, temperature on E61 is extremely variable, so it's hard to say an E61 shot is a certain thing, but traditional E61s only had one boiler in them, and that boiler brought the water up to a steam level of temperature. And the reason that E61 machines have all that exposed chrome is that you can burn yourself on, is so that the burning hot steam, by the time it goes to the tubes and the group head, has now come down to a reasonable temperature to make espresso. And that's how these 61 machines were able to make steam instantly, as well as make espresso instantly. If you were to put any sort of insulation on the group head of an E61 machine, then it doesn't work right anymore, because it's supposed to lose temperature from the steam to the espresso. And one more word on that, I think that double boilered E61 machines are an abomination. It's a terrible idea, because the entire design of the E61 is to have all that exposed chrome so that the water temperature is dropping from 120, 130 Celsius steam down to about 90, 95 Celsius. If now you have a boiler that is the right temperature for espresso, why are you using a group head that's losing heat? it's the wrong technology, which is why, in fact, most of the main manufacturers of professional machines don't make E61s for professional use. They make boilers that bring the water up to the correct temperature, and then they insulate the group head so that the boiler temperature is more or less what hits the espresso. So on the side, you can see this shot pulling, and this was a lot more successful. So this was 24 seconds. Our flow rate was a bit faster, but right about what I would expect for this sort of thing. And you can see very fast fill, pressure rose nice and smoothly, and then we held at 9 bar constantly, and our flow rate started to increase. I haven't spoken about grinders, and this is a good time to do so. We are using the niche grinder, and I would recommend you use a grinder that creates fines if you're going to be making dark roasted coffee. And that's because you see how this is nice, only speeding up a little bit? The fines are what's keeping that puck integrity going. Now, you can use a flat burr grinder, but you want to be faster RPM. The faster the RPM, the more fines you create. If you have a 60 millimeter flat burr grinder, I consider that to be pretty much ideal for dark roasted beans. And in fact, they're all over Italy. That's the most common size. Let's give this a stir. We should see a fair amount of crema here, and that's pretty good, right? And the reason we're seeing that much crema is because we hit the puck hard, and then we sustain 9 bars through the entire time. So it's pressure that makes crema, as well as CO2 outgassing from fresh beans. So that's kind of interesting. Tell me what you think.
I feel like the bitterness is less pronounced than in this one compared to the previous one.
What do you think about balance?
Balance, I think it tastes pretty smooth to me. Yeah.
Acidity versus other flavors.
To be honest, I don't taste much from this one. Yeah.
So this is my favorite straight espresso of all of them. And that's probably because I'm not a dark roast guy. I actually like acidity. And I like acidity balanced off with other flavors. And this faster flow rate that we have here has made a shot that's a little bit less smooth. And it's given me a bit of acidity, and I'm really liking it. As espresso, that's the winner for me, which I didn't really expect. But again, it depends on personal taste. So for me, that faster flow, I really liked. And I felt like that was a great compromise. So there, what we've done is an E61 that doesn't exist in the real world, in the sense that it's an E61 machine with an accurate temperature. What I also liked about that is that even though the extraction temperature at 92 Celsius is quite high, I don't have that much tar flavor. What it might be due to, Illy's book, quite famous on the espresso extraction, talks about how the tar flavors take more time to come out. And I think that the shorter shot, 24 seconds, prevented those flavors from coming out.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
So what we got is like baker's chocolate with not much acidity, but more than the others. Yeah, fair enough. So what I want to show you now is, I think I'll take over here, is you can come over here.
Okay.
I just want to show you, so if I can get the front camera, great, and I'll stay on camera and I'll go over here. So here is the E61 Profile. And what I want to show you is how to use this editor to create a number of different profiles from history. So E61 is the simplest, no pre-infusion, no declining, just hit the puck at 9 bar until you hit 36 grams. Now, E61 machines later did have a little switch where line pressure could be engaged. So line pressure is about 3 bar. And that's me adding 12 seconds of pre-infusion here, which is line pressure water going in, letting it soak, and then rising up to 9 bar of pressure. And that can be a useful thing if you want to have that evolution of the E61 machine. And then if you wanted to do something that looked like the Cremina machine, except minus the soaking, because this profile can't do a pause here. Here we've got a fill for 12 seconds or until it reaches 4 bar. And then we rose to 9 bar of pressure, and then we started to decline. And the reason you might want to do this is we saw in several shots how the flow rate stayed constant on its own at 9 bar for a certain amount of seconds, maybe 5, 10 seconds. And then the flow rate started to increase, and then the pressure being told to decrease would compensate for the increasing flow rate. So we saw that, for example, on Londinium and Cremina also. That's what we're doing here, is this part here, the puck is rearranging, fines are migrating, pressure is doing okay, flow is doing okay, and then flow starts to increase. And so why don't you decrease your pressure, which is going to automatically cause flow from going up too fast. Now, what you'll find, remember that E61 shot had some acidity that I liked. If I tinker with this, that is going to affect how much acidity is in the mix. I can get rid of acidity here, but I can tell you, because I've done this taste test, if I drop the flow, the pressure too quickly, then it actually becomes kind of boring and muted and just kind of gray tasting. If I were to do that, now I'm back to E61. I'm just flat 9 bar the whole way. And so you can tinker with this and decide how much acidity you want in your shot. From experience, I can tell you that between 4 to 6 bar of pressure at the end gives a really pleasing balance of acidity to other flavors. So that's what you do in this case. Now, some people, like really long pre-infusions, do not do this with dark roast. It's going to over-extract it, it's going to be dry, it's going to taste like bad filtered coffee. And if you want a thicker puck, what I would probably do is get rid of pre-infusion completely. This is a really simple lever machine. It's going to create a great shot. It's going to hit the puck with maximum flow in order to try and hit 9 bar as fast as possible. And then it's going to do a gentle decrease down to 4 bar, stopping at 36. So that's how you can use this editor to adjust the shot parameters based on what you're tasting. And I think this 3-step shot editor is especially useful for dark roasted beans. This 3-step concept is how most espresso machines from history work. That's why I programmed it this way. And it was only later that people in the decent community started to think of ways to use this machine to make good light roasted coffee, and the profiles for that are quite different. So 3-step editor, you can start with E61 and start to tinker with it, or you can pick these here. And that is our episode today. Thank you for watching. So relative grind size for different profiles. And the question is, talk a little bit about that. So generally, if you have a long dripping time, so a pre-infusion, then you're going to have to grind finer. If you pre-infuse with a slower flow rate, you're going to have to grind finer. So the profiles where you hit the puck really hard and then rise in pressure, those can have coarser grinds. And we had a 23 on the E61, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, and yes. that was the coarsest of all of them. So the 80s espresso at 22, that also doesn't have any sort of long pre-infusion. And the E61, again, none. And then these had to be finer. All 3 of these were the same. And so the only thing that's an outlier there is best overall. So Londonium and Cremina both had fairly fine grinds. The reason the best overall, we kept it at a fine grind, is because we wanted a really long shot.
Yep.
We wanted like a 45-second shot. That was the style that we were going for. So that's how you can think about it, is look at your profile. If it has a fast fill, it's going to be coarse. If it doesn't have any dripping, it's going to be coarse. If it has a long dripping time, like Londinium does, Adaptive does, you're going to need to go finer. Hope that's helpful. So the roastery that supplied the beans is called Eurocaf in Turin, Italy. I quite like them as a dark roasted bean, and I'll talk about the story behind them because it's kind of cute. So if you can show that there. So you can see they are dark roasted. However, there's not really much oil glistening on them. And that's just a personal taste. I don't really like greasy beans. So there's a little bit of oil I can see shining off of that, but really very little. And this is a coffee bean that I discovered. The salesman came to Hong Kong to a trade show, and we got along really well. And I visited them in Turin as part of my tour of Italy to try and show some respect and learn about the Italian tradition of making espresso. And the cute story about this is I went to the roaster. It was the son of the original founder was there, and I brought my machine, and they pulled a shot with theirs, and I emulated it with a 95 Celsius temperature shot. And they went, okay, you can make the same sort of shot that we do. And then I made the same shot at 88 Celsius. And he was shocked because there's no real temperature regulation on the machines they're using. There's steam coming out, they run the shot until the steam stops, then they pull the shot. So those are like 95, 96 Celsius. Bringing the temperature down made a much smoother shot, and immediately they started to appreciate it more, and that was interesting. But this is where it gets more funny, is I had brought some milk around because I wanted them to taste Italian espresso as the foreigners drink it, which is flat white, which is usually an 18-gram dose, a double, and then something like 110 grams of milk in it. And so I pull the shot, I steam it, a little cup like that. The salesman, he's looking at it. The boss is looking at it. The boss says, I don't want to try it. The salesman drinks it and he says, boss, you got to try this. No. Boss, you got to try this. So he takes it, he sips it, and he jumps out of the seat and he goes, now I understand. And he runs out. And he comes back with all this single origin light roast beans. It turns out he's a pour over guy. And he drinks filter coffee, light roasted beans, and he is using good stuff. And he himself likes fruity flavors. He likes to not have unpleasant, bad flavors. At the same time, there's a commercial reality that he needs to supply dark roasted beans in Turin for his market. And so I quite like his beans because they're made from the perspective of someone who's trying to still have some fruit, not just burn the hell out of his beans, and knows how to taste good coffee, yet respects his tradition. So Eurocaf is the brand. However, if you're outside of Europe, they are sold on Amazon, but they're old. They're not great. So, and even in Europe, you have to find a distributor because they need to be roasted in the last 2 or 3 weeks. If you buy 10 kilos from him, no problem. You'll get them the day after they're roasted. You can freeze them. So this is, here it is, Eurocaf here, and that's what we're using. There are plenty of other, obviously, roasters out there, but you want to find someone who is, in my opinion, roasting fresh, selling them fresh, not a lot of oils on the beans. This is probably the biggest thing, is open the bag, smell it, does it smell good? If you smell off flavors, and the most common off flavor with dark roast is going to be oil going rancid. Mm-hmm. And that means that they over roasted it, the oils came out, and it possibly isn't fresh because the over roasted oils will go rancid really fast. There's kind of nothing you can do if you buy rancid coffee. So please never buy coffee beans from a grocery store because it's going to be old, especially if it's dark roast. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Very much so.
All right. That is it. That's all the questions. Thanks. Next week, it's going to be medium roasted beans, which is a wider gamut because that's medium light to medium dark.